Okay, good morning, BBD, and thank for the opportunity to give this talk about the secure software development lifecycle. And to give a little background about me, my name is Alfred Malope. I'm junior software engineer at BBD. I'm working on a project, cybersecurity defense project at Vodacom. And yeah, today I'm going to be talking about secure software development lifecycle. One might ask, what is secure software development lifecycle? Firstly, we have to start with the traditional software development cycle. The traditional development cycle just focus on planning how you're going to build your software, building, and once it's been deployed, continuous maintenance. So secure software development lifecycle is integrating security in each phases of the planning. So for every phase that you do on the security software development lifecycle, we then going to focus more on the security side of it. When you're doing preparation, we focus on the security side. We focus more on the security. So why does this security matter when you're building software? We all know that most of the vulnerabilities that we found are through the how the development the application was developed from the ground. It's like when you're building a house, so you have to start with the foundation, making sure that everything is fine, rather than when the application, the house is built and you then notice the cracks on the foundation. So to avoid that, we need to first start by early bug detection. So when we build our software, we need strong plan on how we're going to build it. And because now on our plan, we start by detecting vulnerability earlier, it saves us cost rather than noticing fixes when noticing vulnerability when the application is deployed. And we all know that people want their information secure. So when our application is secured, then people are going to trust our application and we're going to save our good name. So yeah, we're going to take a look at each phases of the secure software development, contain of the 6 main phases, and they are like building a software, but we focusing more on security. So on the planning and requirement, we are going to decide what security needs what security we need for our application. When we design, we make a blueprint of the security needs. And the development, we focus more on writing a secure code, the libraries that we use. And with testing, there are a couple of tools out there that we can use to perform testing. We're gonna get to those tools in time. And when we do development, we're making sure that our application is deployed securely. Also on maintenance, we're just going to make sure that we keep our application secure once it's deployed. Okay. Looking at facing the planning phase, we have to define our goal on what security requirements we need for the software that we are building, and we look at the regulatory standard and compliance that we really need to follow, and there are security requirements that we need to recommend. So that we need to document when we are then now planning, we have to document the security that we need and how the user are going to use our system. We're not going to give all the user access to our system, so then we need to like control that access. And once we have that all of things documented, then now we need to start with the designing. Yeah, when we move to the designing, we have to create a secure blueprint of our system to make sure that the attackers will struggle to get into our system. Well, in some cases they will get in, but we need to make sure we plan to build our software secure. We we need to implement like least privilege access when we are building our system. We need to give access to resources that they need to use, not all the resources. And now then we have our blueprint. We need to give the developers to develop now. According to me, I feel the developer are the key role in this software development lifecycle, because even if we have a blueprint and the requirement planned down, but if the developer are not going according to the standard, they choose to use frameworks that have vulnerability, libraries that have vulnerability, still all those work will go to waste. So the developers need to be trained on security best practices, and we have like tools recently that we can just use, and there's like a free libraries that we can use to, when we're coding, to scan our code for common known vulnerabilities, and we have to like do not leak our secret. There's like a Azure Vault, for example, AWS Secret Store. We can use those for our credentials so that we don't leak our secret. We need to keep sensitive information secure as possible. And now that the developers are done developing, well, not really done because we're going to do the maintenance, and the testers needs to jump in. On testing, we have like a couple of tools that we can use. OWASP, which is one of the tools that we can use. Websuit, they're like three other tools that we can use. We need to like really automate this testing. And testing doesn't only begin when we hand over the application to the tester. From the development side, when they build code, when they push to GitHub, they are like a code scanner that they can use to scan code quality, common known vulnerability on the code before it can even mesh. We have an application. And when we have application, before we can hand over to the user, we need to perform some sort of pen testing to check if there were like vulnerabilities that were missed. And yeah, user validation input, how we have to validate the input if everything is well. And we get to deployment. When we're deploying our application, firstly, we need to make sure where we deploy our application first is secure. The configuration is, everything is secure. And when we deploy, we need to deploy best security practice. Enforce HTTPS for secure communication. And we need to implement some of the HTTP here for security, monitoring our application. The alerting is very important, but the monitoring and alerting, yeah, it is very important on the application. Someone might say it bad because of the application, but I believe if you have a large enterprise system, you need monitoring, you need the alerts for any sort of unusual activities. You really need to monitor those things. And now we go to the maintenance. Once now our application is deployed and the user are using our application, we can implement a credential rotation. Credential rotation is very important on our system because now and then there are, like, for example, passwords that have been hacked and they are added to the database that people have that list where they just can use that credentials to brute force your system. So if you do key rotation, you kind of avoid some of those attacks. And implementing bug bounty for large enterprise system, they have this bug bounty program where the people will go and just find vulnerability on the system and report those vulnerability. Once the vulnerability has been reported, then that's when they will do the patching for those vulnerability. And here are some of the useful tools that we can use as not only as a developer, but the whole organization that are responsible for building this software. So we have OWASP tools that we can use GitHub and GitHub also offers some of the code scanning tools that we can use, and we need to enforce the code review. We can't just measure our code unless it passes certain standard. So on that code review, we really need to put in some vulnerability checks, code quality checks, and secret leakage. So this will also help the development process easier. And yeah, here's what I want you guys to take from this presentation is that security is not for one person, it's everyone's job. From BA, from developer, when we're developing a system, it's not a role for just the security team. Security is for everyone. And when we build secure application, the customer is going to trust us. And yeah, with the safer system, we'll make our customer happy. And yeah, with that, that's the end of my talk. Any question?